so let's dive in then. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is assuming that you have a working app. I'm going to base this on app 1 that works in console. We just want to add a front end on the front of it so that we can utilize the logic and the variables that the console has in place. And indeed, if you've done the unit testing as well, you would have done some of this too. You would have utilized the attributes, the public attributes of your distance converter or other class, as well as your logic, the calculate method. So we're going to be doing something like that. Here, we're just going to be creating a new project to generate some web front end. We're going to generate some HTML as well. So like your unit testing, you would have to navigate to your solution and then add a new project. Now, if you haven't got this, if this doesn't come up already, you would want to navigate to the rightmost menu and scroll down all the way to web. And might want to reduce options too by typing in C#. And that would give you both the model view controller, which is what we just said, that separates your view, your model, and your controller into separate pages. You have to make them all talk to each other. Whereas the RazorPages is slightly more integrated, and you're going to see that. So we're going to pursue the RazorPages option. So you want to double click on that. Okay, so I'm just going to call mine, just call it web. Okay, you could call it web app, web Razor, whatever variation you'd like. I'm just going to simply stick with web. Okay, and from here we then move into the next menu of settings, and I'm currently on web net 5.0. If you've got web net 6, that shouldn't affect what we're trying to do here. So we should be able to leave these as they are. So if you've got net 0.6, go for that. It shouldn't affect what we're trying to do. So anyway, I'm going to hit create. And when you do, you should get a third project or second project if you haven't done the unit testing. Anyway, you should get a separate project called whatever you called it, whether it's web in my case. And from there, you should have a series of folders. Now, we're going to be interested in the pages folder. And if you click on that, you get the drop down here. Now, in shared, there is a, this is for the layout of the navigation bar. We're going to have to come back to this and change it a bit later. We're going to get a link to the distance converter rather than the privacy page. And in fact, before we do that, the first thing we should do is we should set up a reference to the ConsoleAppProject so that this web project, this separate project, can talk to and refer to aspects of web ConsoleAppProject. So like you did for your unit test project, I'm going to right click on this and go down to add and go to project reference. Okay, you did this for your unit testing, so it's the same process. You want to add a reference, you want to click on that tick box there to ConsoleAppProject and press OK. Okay, and in the project file, the CS project file properties, it's going to add a little reference for you there. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. So let's close it down. So we've done the reference, that's good. And we had a look at the layout. We're going to come back to that. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start in index.cshtml. And you can probably tell by the extension that it is actually a combination of HTML, which you've done in web, if you've taken the web module, that is, or done web before, as well as CS, C#, .cs files that you've seen already. So we are going to combine both of those things here. And actually, let's run this straight out the box. So you could go up to here and change it to web, and then that should change your running location to ISS Express. Information, or kind of what it's called, something to do with server. It's going to create a local host for us. And if we click on that, we should then generate a web page that we can see. It's going to probably show us some generic Microsoft templates. Oh, we've got a security warning, perhaps because I'm on the previous version of .NET. It might not be up to date. Okay, once we've passed the security metrics, this is what we're saying. This is the generic Microsoft template. So this is, as you saw, we've got the welcome message, we've got home, and we've got privacy. Okay, 2 pages currently. We're going to rebrand that. We're going to make that distance converter. You could also reuse this and have this for if you want to create web front ends for your other applications as well. You could also create a list in here and have options to go to the pages. This would essentially be a hyperlink through to another page. As you can see, when I click on these, they're going to go to a separate page. And indeed, we're going to add a distance converter page that we're going to link to. Okay, so I'll try and do this in the most efficient and simple way possible. So we'll leave the list, we'll come back to that. That's just extra HTML formatting. So all we'll do is we will just change the title of this. Let's say this is just some HTML. Let's just say this is going to be our CO 453 portfolio. By all means, come up with a better name if you want to. And the heading tags, let's just create, let's just say it's by me, obviously your name, and we don't need to worry about this this link here to the Microsoft resources. You can comment that out if you'd like to, or just delete it. I'm going to just showcase the comment here. Just to remind you, in HTML, it's angle bracket, exclamation mark, dash, dash, and then dash, dash, close angle bracket at the other end. Okay, so that's that. All right. So when we run this, we'll get this as a home page. So I think from here, what we need to do is we need to add this distance converter Razor page. And actually, before we do, if I just show you this, we're currently seeing the I guess the front end, the actual HTML, the presentation of this. And if you were to click on that little drop down, you would see a Index.cs HTML.cs, and that takes you to the model. And that model, it is the model from MVC, but it's also combined with the controller aspects as well, because we've got options here to get and post and do all of the interactivity in here. So we're kind of, where these were separated in MVC, they are joined together under the RazorPage architecture. Okay, and we're going to be coming back to this and modifying this. But what we need to do is we need to add a new Razor page, and I'm going to do it under Pages. So if I right click on that Pages folder, because I want it to appear in the same directory as this, I'm going to click on Add, and then Razor Page. Now let's go with Razor Page empty. I think the others are some templates. Let's go with empty. Let's click on Add. And in here, we'll make sure, I think this is selected by default, we'll stick with that, a Razor page, not a Razor view. I do need to change the name of it though. So let's call this Distance Converter, or App1 Distance Converter. Just something that represents a dedicated page for our first app, where we're going to see a front end, we're going to see those interactive elements that we can click on things, we can enter things in, and then get an output. Okay, essentially, rather than seeing it on the console, we're going to do it on the web. We're going to input the from unit, the from distance, the to unit, and then use the logic of the C# in the console app to get us the to distance, and then throw it to screen. Okay, so we're going to add this, and then hopefully we will see that appear here. Okay, now there's a number of important things we need to do here. So let's just focus in on this, because we need to have a reference to our, now we've included the project reference, we need to use sorry, it's at using, isn't it? At using, and then ConsoleAppProject.app01. We do need that. Okay, so this is the CS, this is the C# version the top of this HTML page, and then underneath is where we would then display our HTML. This is where we can put our headings and things. So let's. This is going to be the distance converter page. So at the top here, let's say we want just to point them. We want to tell them to select the from unit. That's going to be the very first thing we want them to do. We'll come back and fill this in, but the important thing is that we have a reference now to app1. That's going to come in very useful. And actually, if we go to the code behind page, in here, I believe we're also going to have to do the same. We're going to have to include a reference to ConsoleAppProject.app01. You do need a semicolon there. And now within this model, we're going to want to create a dedicated object from which we can then assign values to. So in here, we're going to, let's make it public because we want to refer to it in our other page, the front end page, the HTML there. So let's say public distance converter. You should, if you've included the reference, you should now get the link to it. And let's create an object. Okay. And then let's also use the get and set directives to make sure we can get that. And we also, one other thing we need to do, very important, we need to bind property. That's going to become very important. We need to have that in there. Okay, so with that, I think we're going to come back and we're going to fill some of these in. But if we set this up correctly, we should now be able to refer to aspects of app1 through, well, mainly it's going to be the from distance to from unit to distance to unit, isn't it, through app1, and we should also be able to access those distance units, the enumerated type as well, if we've got the link to app1. I think there's one final thing I need to do, and that is just so we can actually get to this page. Let's go back to our layout. And now that we've got a dedicated page for distance converter, rather than we're going to just overwrite privacy with distance converter, essentially. So ASP-page with distance converter. And then the little label, let's just say that's going to be distance converter. So when you set up your hyperlinks to the list, you can also refer to that through this link too. Okay, I'm just going to keep it real simple with this. So let's just check that we can get what we want. So let's just run this and just check we've got our references. Okay. So I've made a few modifications to the home page. There we go, and we've got a link in our nav bar now to distance converter. Yeah, and we saw that heading select from unit. So now the next stage is this is where we're going to see whether we can link to aspects of the app1. So if I was to have a little combo box, in HTML, what is it? It's select, isn't it? Select in there, and let's see now, can we? Yes, we've got a reference to app1. Let's see now, can we select for from unit? Okay, that's looking good. That's what we want to see. Yes, because that's essentially once we select one of these, we then apply it to the from unit attributes. Okay, and then within here, there is a shortcut. I think there's a way in Derek's video it will show you there's a HTML convert where you can get the entire numerate set. But let's just see whether we can get to distance units. So if we display them all, yeah, that's looking good. You need to use the @ sign there. That's a slightly different layout. It's part of the model as opposed to that reference to the app01 object that we created in the code behind file. So let's just copy these as options and just if you've got more options, by all means, put them all in. I'm just going to keep it simple. Miles is the other one, isn't it? Yeah, so that's the from unit. And actually, I'm thinking we need to put this in a form, don't we? Because we're going to have to submit this form so that we can actually do some processing and work out the result. So actually, I'm going to just backtrack one step and create a form, HTML tag, form method, post. It needs to be post. So set that up, and then you're going to want to move the tag there. There you go. So select the from units, and then at the end we're going to need a button as well, aren't we? We're going to need a button, which is what is that? Is that button class? BTN. It's BTN. Success. I think that's just a CSS styling, I believe. I think it's more important to make sure it's a submit button under type. So that's going to be most important. I think this is just for the formatting and the presentation, just so it comes up in that green color. Submit, and then yes, and then it's a calculate or convert, whatever you prefer. I'm going to need that. That's going to post it. And then we're going to have to respond to that in here as well. So we'll come to that. We're going to have to create a public OnPost. Let's carry on here. I skipped ahead. So we're going to need a to unit as well. That's going to come in. We have to get that. We're going to have to use a user for that. So to unit. So it's actually the same menu. We'll just replace the references to from unit with to unit. That's that bit. And then in between, or we could put in between or after if you want, depends on what order you want to do it in. What formatting. You might just want to have some paragraphs as well. That's a P, isn't it, in HTML? Let's just, you can change the formatting. You'll be able to make it much nicer than me. This is a very nuts and bolts approach, just so we can get the main functionality of our RazorPages working. There we go, nicely formatting for me, which is good. And what's left? It's the from unit, from distance. Sorry, from distance. So in here, let's say it's input type. It's going to be a text box. Is it ASP? I think it's ASP4. Now we want to put it in app01. It's from distance, isn't it? That's, I believe. Let me just consult the video. Let me just double check that, because that's very important. We need to get that right. Input ASP4 type equals text. Oh, I think I've got that. Okay, I don't know if that affects it. I think in HTML it's just input type, but let's try that. Oh, and then it's just should be what we want. And actually, let's just have a little header as well, just so we know. This is going to be input, just a little label. Input the from distance. So I think there is actually another. This one needs to respond to the process. We post it to. Let's do this in order. We post it through to here. So this is the code behind. So let's create a public OnPost method. And in here, we're going to need, this is where we go to after we posted the form. So we need to call the calculate method. That's the C# console logic, isn't it? It does its conversion. It looks like your from distance, applies the formula and gets your to distance, stores it in to distance. So from there, we then just want to display it on screen, don't we? So in RazorPages, there's a way of doing that. It's with view data. Now, I'm just going to consult the video again. Let's just double check we get this right. I'm going to need to go back to the code behind. There it is, view data message, and then we do that. So it's view data message. This must be a preset, and then that's where we can define it ourselves. So if you want to use string interpolation, you can. If not, I'm just going to do this the old school way. Let's say from distance, formatting here using the concatenation, and then at 01 units. Can we get this? I don't know if that's gonna. Will it display? Can we get toString? Let's try toString. Yes. And then it's so from distance. So that should read something like 10 miles, and then we just need to concatenate this with something like is app01. And then it's going to be to distance, and then followed by app01 to units. Again, to string, we might need that. I don't know if that's going to work as expected. Does that have a semicolon? It does have a semicolon. Okay, I don't know if it would do it implicitly or not, but let's just see anyway. Let's try and explicitly declare we want the string versions of it. So that's the OnPost, which should be called when we submit the form. So it's then a case of how do we get it back once we've we should be able to put it within the form. And let's go back to where we were. Now that we've kind of set up, it's this. We can actually make use of the Derek's in this case made use of the alert, and that includes a view data message, so it'll actually access what we put in that OnPost there. So let's use that. Let's say p class alerts lead primary. I think again that's just a styling, isn't it? So what was it again? P class was alert primary. So this is just the styling. Yeah, if we can get away with that, I'm not too fussed what the styling is. We just want the interactivity, and then we need that view data, and we have to refer to it with the @ symbol again. So view data, and then we want to refer to message, basically what we had stored in there in our code behind file. Remember, this code behind file, it's got the kind of the model in it. It's saying it's a model as well as the controller aspect, hasn't it? Because it's got the interactivity and the processing of that data. So it processes what's in the model and then throws it out to screen in our view in here. We could actually, if we want one final fix, we could actually just reduce the number of, in fact, semicolon was stray, wasn't it? Let's take the semicolon out of there. We might not need that. That might be why it was causing that. So let's go back here, and one final thing, to distance. We'll put that to toString, and we'll limit that to 2 decimal places. There we go. Tidy us up a bit more nicely. One more time. It was looking good. It looked to have run that, didn't it? Which was good. So that's useful. So as I say, if you want to start creating a list of different apps, you can put them in here. Just create your list, your unordered list, and your list items. I've just done hopefully the path of least resistance. Just again, it's a link through to this page. And what did we go? We want meters to feet, didn't we? I think, yeah. So let's go 100 meters again, calculate, and there you go. Yeah, so that's kind of very basic for this. You'll want to change your presentation, I'm sure, but that's just a very basic view, very basic process to get the RazorPages working. We'll probably do MVC in a separate video. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. By all means, just take it slowly, look at the different steps, and just see how you get on.